So tonight we want to talk, or I want to talk about the power of pruning, and it's the last little uh, section that I put in the curriculum, and to consider pruning, I wanted to do a little bit of review. That really, all of us want to be clear and aligned and effective. So those words are really significant, I think, for the philosophy, at least upon which I'm building. That we want to be clear about, our design and relationships and roles, but we want to be aligned, and that takes some work. And we want to become more effective, which we will do if we do those things. But the enemies of being clear, aligned, and effective are first confusion. And I would submit that most people are living in a pretty high level of confusion because we haven't had tools or ways to be very clear about our design and our functions. So one enemy is confusion. Another is lack of spiritual or personal discipline. And so that's part that, that is an element that is unescapable. And so some people really don't like that word, and most of us feel like we're not disciplined. We always think we should be more self-disciplined. But to all that I want to submit in for the purpose of this course is discipline simply means to do what you know God wants you to do. And if we will do that, like David said, if you'll do the work and do the assessments, that requires some discipline. But it's not like over the top. I mean, this can be done. It really can. So the enemies are confusion or lack of discipline. Or the third is a lack of faith-filled implementation. And that's something I'm continually really working with in my own soul right now, is if this is clear, where's the place of faith in it and the boldness to press ahead? But the solutions to that are do the work, so for confusion, do the work and discover the stuff, this pathway will help you. So you got confusion, do the work. So in the other course, the 90-day people, I've had a couple that are, they're coming to that overwhelmed state, and so two things seem to happen there. One is they feel overwhelmed and it looks like this is going to be too much work to pull off. Or the second thing is they turn wimpy and they start saying like, I don't know, you need to really just pray for me. I mean, I like to pray for people's stuff, but you can tell they're just like wimpy wine. And so I've pretty much got a standard response that says, do the work. You can do this thing, but you don't need prayer to do the work. You need to do the work. I'll pray for you, but it isn't going to happen without you doing the work. And so that will help to bring clarity, I think. And then getting aligned, that discipline really is in what David said, and in the rule of life. So again, those are not even the main. That's not like, what am I going to do? What's my main purpose? But it is putting our lives in order, is alignment with God. And so as you go through, you'll determine whether or not you agree with the general overview that I'm giving, because it is more ordered than you probably had ever thought coming into this. The concept of a rule of life, whether you could actually develop a weekly Sabbath rhythm that's actually taking all of this stuff into account. So that's going to be rough, but because it is a life change. And that's something that I'm concerned about, and I believe you guys will be, of when you're not in the group anymore, can you sustain without that little reminder or me kind of hounding on you? Will you sustain that alignment? But if we are in the place where we've gotten clarity and we're aligned, I can assure you, you're going to see transformation in your life. And that last part, though, is a plan. To plan the work of where you're going in your life, and then to work the plan. And that's what people generally are hoping when they say, I want to do this thing. They're thinking we're going to create a plan and work the plan as step one. And that will get you nowhere of the depth that God has for you. If I'm going to ask David again, would you say if we had jumped to that stage that you would have the same kind of fruitfulness you feel in your soul at this point, David? And why, what's the difference?
Emphatic no. I mean, there's almost no way I would have been able to do the purpose and rule of life without the work that preceded it. Difference is twofold. First being, the reason I took the course is because I wasn't clear. So how can you go from a place of unclarity to knowing your purpose overnight? That I think that's obvious to all of us. The second thing is the process of reflection, both through the work and also through developing some Sabbath rhythms that I hadn't had before, created space for me, even when I wasn't doing the work, I think, to become more reflective, and therefore served as a catalyst for, at the points where I sat down and said, all right, I'm gonna breathe. I'm going to receive the love of the Father, and I'm going to write out. I'm just going to type out or write out what I think my purpose is based on what I know so far. There was definitely a flow. And even going into it, it wasn't like I sat down and thought there's going to be a flow. Even to the point of where I started writing at times, I was kind of like, I don't know. But doing the process, developing the rhythms of reflection, converged in me making what seems to be, at this moment at least, some significant progress in terms of surfacing my purpose and becoming more clear on what's going to be practices in my life going forward, the rule of life stuff.
Awesome. So those, again, the rhythms of, how much I say reflection, but that rhythm of reflection is, to me, that's the difference maker in a sense. It is, and that isn't, a book won't get you there. Working hard won't get you there. It isn't, because that involves the encounter of God, the teaching or counsel of the Holy Spirit, and a deepening in our soul. So that process, that does take time, as all of us realize. So what I want to do before I again, this is, believe it or not, just wanting to clarify where we are in the process before we talk about pruning. So as I mentioned, clarity, alignment, and effectiveness, determine where you are in that. How clear are you? How aligned do you feel you are? Or how effective? So if you just kind of plot those out, this isn't going to be for sharing right now. It's just for you, almost like to put those three, make a line, put those 3 points on the page, and just before God, and invite God into it to see where you are in it. And the reason that I say that is that will help you to focus your energy. If it's still muddy, you're not sure, most of you, it's been fun to see, and we're seeing this in the other group too. When you do all that assessment stuff and you go through that first section, it's pretty amazing how much it just comes together. Now, it does take that extra work to write it out. And Joanne gave it a shot to express a little bit of her thing today in front of the church, but when you write it out, when you speak it out, when you're clarifying it, it not only gives you a sense of who you are, but when you say it, it also helps others to know how to access you. It will bring things of the kingdom of God towards you, just even that section. So as David said, so then when you're down to the end, you're not creating from nowhere. You're just kind of bringing it together, but recognizing where you are. If the clarity isn't there, the alignment is the hardest part. The alignment may take you a long time because you really can't cheat the deal. And by that, I mean, alignment is really coming under the lordship and the kind of governance or bridling. Like a wild horse is an awesome horse. They're beautiful. But I think a wild horse that actually has been grown with self-discipline actually is delighted. I think that if we just break things and make them our servants, that's not the goal. That's like humankind out of order. But when we actually train them into what we believe is kind of their purpose and function, they like it. The fire dog likes riding on the truck and being, being the little thing, and the horse likes these things. And I think that that alignment in our life will bring greater satisfaction to our soul. And it will bring a sense that, no, what I'm doing is what God wants. That gives us the ability to handle persecution or hardship, gives us the perseverance to press through, and it now starts to inform that praying that is world-changing prayer. And it's not world-changing prayer because we're praying about other things. It's world-changing prayer because we're praying about where God has placed us and it's giving us authority. So as we keep building in that, by taking responsibility, then in the other group tonight, I'll just be starting to talk about the relationship thing. And you can remember, that's an overwhelming thing. We're all working on, are we really taking the relationships that God has put in our lives seriously before God, to see which ones we should be just kind of keeping our eye on, which ones we should be praying into, and which ones we should be praying and investing into. Just that one piece takes a lot of work to have alignment. But look at the usefulness before God of the difference between when we're giving that attention or we are not. And that's just, again, one little area of the deal. So the more we can align our lives, the more effective we will undoubtedly be. And then as we start to then say what we're doing, we're planning in order to live into the next season of our life. So just recognize where you are, and maybe at the end, if we have any time, we can just even pray in whatever you would like for you. But let me move over to the pruning idea. So what I'm saying, calling this, and is the importance of saying no. And it's the importance of saying no to opportunities, activities, and associations that are holding you back, that are holding you back from clarity or growth or fulfillment or effectiveness in God's purpose in your life. So again, you can't prune until you have some sense of stuff, right? But you can be pruning along the way. You don't have to wait till the last segment. And that's part of why I think this will be valued for all of us at all stages. But so pruning, again, is the importance of saying no to opportunities, activities, associations that are holding us back from clarity, growth, fulfillment, effectiveness in our purpose or purposes from God. And to consider that, again, that can sound really negative. And I want to submit to you that endings are a healthy part of life. Everything has a life cycle. What are some of the things that you can think about that healthily have an end to them that we need to just recognize? What things end that we need to say, this is going to end? Anything you come to mind? Paulia, give me something that ends. You got it. You're muted, but
fertility.
Okay, we'll go there. Okay. Okay. So fertility has a cycle, right? Has cycles within cycles too. So fertility has an end. And when that ends,
glory to God, glory, hallelujah.
And in that end, right, there's both parts, right? For some, that's a brutal morning. And for others, it is a delightful reality, right? So good. Anybody else? What's another thing that ends?
just thinking of a simple one is seasons end, summer, fall, winter. They all have in short, really, in our lifetime, they're pretty short endings.
Yeah. So we're ending one right now, right? It's having a beautiful gasp, though, isn't it? What an awesome weekend and stuff. Yeah. So seasons end, and we need to recognize that. You can lament it. I mean, even today, right? Walking out, even talking to Polly, everybody like, well, I could do this all the time. I want to be in San Diego. I could live here all the time. Nope. Nope. Seasons end. We're going to move on to the next one. Anything else have endings that you can think of real quick?
Child rearing within your home.
Okay. So the empty nest thing, so what David is living in, everybody else can say, that will end. We had friends over that have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old last night. And my goodness, like, what? I'm really asking, like, God, how do you trick everybody? Like, you see, what is it that you come into life and then you get to this age and you want to do this, but you're clueless of just how costly this is going to be to you. And he puts this little thing in. It's like you go, oh, I'm just going to have children. You're kind of, it is awesome, but my goodness, you have no idea, right? But then there comes a point where there's that season, at least in the home, ends. What we find out is that doesn't mean that it ended at all. That nobody told me how that works, but so recognizing that really everything has an end, and I think that in my experience, Christians are kind of the worst at this. We hold on to everything. We think everybody should stay in church. We think you have to just be faithful way past when you should be faithful, and we have a hard time ending things. I don't know why. It seems like it's harder for us than for the general populace. We could unpack that at some point. But I think that the idea that things end, seasons end, people's lives end, stages, decades end, as you get older, you realize there really is a distinctive to say, your first 10 years, I can tell you what the theme of that looks like, what your teen years look like, your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s. Every decade is very different, right? They have a season. It kind of ends, and it really ends kind of like right around that magic year. It's crazy, but those are very real. And the reality, not only do things end, the good news is even that they need to end because everything that is productive produces too much. And that's God's design. Trees produce too much fruit. An effective life produces too many activities, produces too many responsibilities, produces too many clients or people reporting to you, too many relationships, too many everything. And if we just kind of do it, our life just gets out of control. We're either not taking good care of it, or we're trying so hard that our lives start to crush us. So we need to recognize that without the idea of pruning our lives, the more effective we are, the more out of control our life gets. So that's kind of wild, isn't it? Because we're sowing more seeds.
That was so good. I need to pause and get a pen. So if I disappear, that's why.
Okay. So I mentioned 2 books in that last thing, and I've mentioned them at points along the way, but one of them is called Necessary Endings by Henry Cloud. An incredible book. Paulia grabbed it. I don't know how much of it you read. You read some of it, right? Did you like it? You're muted, so I know you liked it.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
It really is good. I mean, a lot of it is focused, I think, on, or at least it starts out being a lot around kind of corporate stuff, but it's really good.
Yeah. Well, for a good bit of this crew, That's always, that is a relevant way to think of it. But it is written, it's not written for church life, although gosh, does it apply. And then this other book is Free to Focus, and this one is really good, but this is a down the road a little bit. This is going to be when you're really ready to work it and work it more, but it's really good. And Michael Hyatt, I think he was the president of Baker Printing House, I think, something like that, for a long time. He's very effective leader. But both of those books are good. But in the Necessary Endings book, he describes this expression, and I don't know if I've talked about it here because I talk about it a lot now, of naming the rose. So as we talk about, as you move into developing your rule of life more, a rule of life, that word can be very intimidating. If it sounds like a bunch of rules, that's not what's meant. It's more about a rose bush will grow, but if you give it a trellis, that thing will grow and produce better roses, and gives it some discipline for that unruly rose self. But if you also recognize the roses you're really after, you're going to prune some of the other ones and create bigger ones, better ones. So you want to take some time to name your rose, and that's really what we're doing. Naming your rose is clarifying your purpose. What do you want to do? What would success look like? So that's another step in this that's really in the strategic plan piece, but not just what do you want to do, what will it look like? Describe it. Now your vision is starting to take on, like, okay. And I would even, I don't know if he does or not, one of the books does, how would you measure it? Again, people of faith don't like to think those ways. But what would that rose look like? How big of a rose are you looking for? What is it? How would you measure that? With whatever. It depends on what your thing is. And that, if that's hard, we could talk about that. And then what are concrete steps to start getting to that rose? And these could all be little roses within your overall system. But what I want you to think about today even is, what are concrete steps to get towards your rose October, November, December, this next quarter? You want to be taking some steps, not just the material, but you want to also be saying, like, okay, what I'm starting to see, what are steps? Now those steps could be, I need to finish whatever part of the curriculum you're dealing with, or I need to process, that the experiences section. I really want to be, whether it's whatever it is, what are some concrete steps? And then, so one is name the rose, and secondly is going to be pruning. And that's important for you even now, for most of us. And we're going to prune 3 kinds of things in our life. One is dead activities. And again, how aggressive you want to be in your pruning has to do with how big you want the rose to be. If you want to be an Olympic swimmer, you're going to have to be, like, really pruned down. Your diet is going to be a factor. Everything's going to be a factor. But if you're looking to be just like a healthy swimmer, not the same level, right? And so whatever that rose that you're after will determine how aggressively you need to prune. So one is dead activities or relationships, and that doesn't mean to get rid of the relationships, but it's going to mean to not invest as much in them, or not let them impact you to the same degree. But get rid of dead activities, get rid of unfruitful activities. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm sorry, maybe I missed it when I was writing trying to keep up with the writing, but did you say what is a dead activity? What is that?
Good. No. Okay, let's move on. Yeah. So a dead activity, I would say, is even something that's bringing you death. So an unfruitful one, it produces nothing. But a dead activity is something that has nothing on it. You know, so you could have branches of a plant, they're not dead, but they're just not fruitful. But you have other parts that are literally dead, right? They're done stuff. Just get it off the calendar. So there's no reason to have that thing on there anymore. It doesn't need to be there. So whether it is that it produces death in you, it's something that you dread, and you realize, like, I'm a grown-ass woman. Sorry about that. I don't need to be doing this anymore. Then don't do it anymore. Take it off the list. Cut it out. Why? It's doing nothing for me. And so it's that kind of a thing. But the unfruitful ones are things that might be producing some kind of return, but they're not what you're looking for. So it could be producing a different kind of fruit, and you realize, like, whoa, I'm in the rose business, but this is a different thing. And the third one is good but energy suckers, and so that's a little bit different. So this could be fruit producing, but it's just taking too much energy out of it's holding you back from what you want to do. So I think those are even a progression. First one, the dead stuff, that's easy to tell. You know, you look at a plant, you can say, like, that thing doesn't have anything on it. I can just snap that off. That's easy. The harder one is, okay, this branch, I can't tell. Should I cut it off? Like, it doesn't have any roses on. It's not dead. I don't know. That's where you got to start to develop. You got to have a little bit of a skill set. You know, you're starting to realize, like, if I cut this off, will that, like, hurt me or help me? I don't, you know, that part it's a little bit of an art to learning that. But that other one, the good things that are actually energy suckers, so they might be, you know, it's producing little roses over there, but if we can take that thing off, it will make better flow to the other part of the plant. That's a higher level pruning. That's where a lot of the energy, where the money is, really, because that energy that's taking out of you, when you can reallocate that energy, that can be powerful. Are you wanting to say something, David? Looks like you might have something welling up in there.
Yeah, I got a question. Is it possible you could give personal examples or examples from other people's experience of each of those three briefly?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe all of us can. So activities that are dead. Can anybody think of any that you might have in your life right now that you could say, like, this thing actually doesn't need to be there anymore? Maybe our lives are fairly aligned. Looks like Marilyn has one, but she's muted.
I do way too much reading, and it distracts me from other things that I could get done. And I don't want you recommending any more books to me, because I'll read them in like 3 days and not do anything else. I love that book, Educated. I read it in 3 days. And what else did I accomplish in those 3 days? Nothing.
Note to self.
Don't tell Marilyn any good books.
Yeah, her self-discipline's a little
a little out of alignment.
Yeah, but so that's a good one, you know. And so those kinds of things, and again, they're not bad. It's to put them in the right place, right? So that would be one to say, okay, I might not take it out, but I'm going to cut back a lot of that, or whatever. Again, to whatever degree that would be. Any other things like that are dead activities that you could think of? What I think of most is something that was effective that isn't anymore, and so that takes sometimes we won't notice them. So you're saying, like, what does this do? You know, so it can be helpful to say, so what am I doing with my week? You're pulling out your planner, you're looking at it and saying, like, so this was good, but what's it even doing now? It's not doing anything. It's still scary to say put an end to it, though. It is. It feels bad to stop things. Let me think if I can think of one from my life lately or at hand. there's a whole lot in the realm for me. I don't know if I'd categorize it that way, but it's basically just having to say no, and it's it means that other people's I'm having to determine what expectations I want for my life, and it will not make others happy to say no. But yeah, so those are the kinds of things like that. I think that when you do them, you're just wasting. So dead ones are wasters. The unfruitful ones, again, are things that you do, but they're not contributing to where you want to go. That can be a whole lot. It isn't just kind of entertainment things. I think that's a little bit more in the dead section, but it could be, again, work assignments, responsibilities in the community, that you're actually, when you pull back and say, like, what is this accomplishing? It's not accomplishing much for what you want to do. And so again, if you don't have a reason, you wouldn't cut it off. You'd say, well, but I'm there. They need somebody on the board. They need somebody to do this thing. You're like, okay, how does that fitting what I'm trying to build right now? I'm filling a board seat, showing up and serving in this way. It's things that are okay, but they're not producing fruit for you. And then the last section are things that are good, but they're producing a different kind of fruit, I think. They're taking too much energy. They are things that you may even like to do, but you realize, like, okay, I do like serving in that role. I do like, for me, it would be things of, I do like facilitating those kinds of services, or I do like anything that is good, but it's not going in the direction I want to. So that's why it's not, on the big end, that's going to get finer and finer. It's going to get more important. And this book, so is really hits on that hard. So he starts with, so to if you want to focus your life, the first thing is to stop. And he said, and so you're going to recognize, in a sense, he doesn't use the rose illustration, but you're going to name the rose, and then you're going to stop. And the first thing you're going to do is create a not to-do list. And you're going to go after that first. So he's saying, like, you're going to start with pruning right out of the gun. So it's a very interesting way to go after. So he says, you're creating a not to-do list, and from that, you're going to have to figure out, he has a strategy for how you're going to do that, whether that's delegating or it's different kinds of things you're going to do. Get it off, get it off, get it off. Why? Because you want to focus.
I'll give you an example, because David was looking for one that I'm really struggling with, and I think it would be an energy sucker. I've been active with the YMCA for probably the last 15, 20 years. And I am now a chairman emeritus, because I've been through the seats, I've been a chairman, and they put me on the chairman emeritus. I no longer live in that geographic area. So I'm not as familiar with all the issues that are facing Richmond and the surrounding counties anymore. It will kind of break my heart, but I think I'm going to resign, because I don't have the time or the energy to put into an area that doesn't impact where we live today.
Yeah, good.
But it's a struggle. It's hard.
Yeah. And so that, so that's again, that's part of the question, I think, is as you clarify what your rose is, it could be that you actually double your energy into that, or you cut it off, right? Depending on why and what you're after. If you're after, I want to produce fruit in my area, my neighborhood, my sphere, that's outside of it. I need to cut it off. That's a brutal deal. Like, that's a brutal thing, because that's letting go of relationships. It's letting go of identity, lots of stuff, right? Good. That's a good one. So first, I would say name the rose, second, prune. Third is get out of what you can. Get out of the things that you can. And just a couple kind of suggestions along that. As I mentioned, the not to-do list, that, but again, I'm just touching these tonight. But one way to get out of things is when people come to you for a request. And particularly when you're younger, a request is flattering and makes you feel like, wow, I've got some credibility here. But when you start to realize, but the answer is no, here's 3 points that you could jot down. One is say yes to your priority. So when somebody is first asking you to do something, this is an opportunity for you to declare your sense of priority in life. Again, you never know what that's going to do to that person. But you're saying, thank you for coming to me. I'd like to be clear. At this stage of my life, this is what I'm after. So you're saying yes to your priority. And you're going to say no very clearly to their request with no wiggle room. So you're going to be clear. So I am actually going to have to say no to this. And that's really hard because I can tell what you're doing is really valuable too, but I don't have the ability to invest in that. And then the third is say yes to the relationship. So you're going back to first, you're saying, here's my priority. Second is no. The third is, however, I want you to know I really value us. And I want to, if I can, be of help to you to find a solution for that. So instead of just saying no, you're saying like, if there's a way, let me see if there's somebody I can find, or if I'm going to look for resources. I can have a little bit of time that, because, so let's say that, well, Marilyn's is different, and I'll talk about that one in a second. That's how to get out of a commitment. But in a sense, she would be somebody they're like, but I'm going to even do a little bit of research, and I'm going to help you figure out how you can get the next person in that role. And so it'll take you a little bit of time, but to do that time will be a blessing to them, and you're out. You added value to them, and you said no. But our tendency is when people do it, we do everything in a passive aggressive way. Again, Christians are really bad at this. So we tend to either we say yes to things we don't want to say yes to, or we avoid it. So they've talked to us and they've invited us to do something, and we blow it off, and we're hoping that it'll go away. I mean, don't we all do that? I mean, I hope that they I hope they're looking for somebody else too, because we don't want to say no. We'll kind of put little stall things in there. I'm thinking about it. I want to pray about it, when we know it's not a good idea. So just get clear quickly. Clarify, this is my priority. The answer is no. Here's how I've thought a little bit about how I might be able to help you towards that end. And the last thing I want to share is, if you've committed to something that you've already committed to it and you want to get out of it. And so Marilyn's her illustration could be a little bit related. I don't think so. Hers, I think that process right there could work very well for you. I think my time now is I'm going to be doing this. But if you committed to something, so somebody asked you, and an example of this kind of stuff was Greater Things for Greater Boston. And they wanted me a few years ago to be involved and to be because I was doing Boston prayer and facilitating the summits and all that. And they thought we could use a prayer guy on our thing. And I said, I don't think you want me, because I like what you're doing. I would love what you were doing if it had a prayer piece to it, but I can't imagine you're going to be able to do what you want to do and incorporate prayer on the level that you're hoping. And I don't think I bring any real bodies behind me. I don't think I'll do it. They said, well, we would like you to. I said, okay, I'll do it for 9 months, and then we'll evaluate. And so, and we, at the end of the 9 months, and they're like, are you going to stay? I said, no. what you're doing is great. I like what Greater Boston does. I think greater things for Greater Boston. But my role in it wasn't good. But I had given away to prune it later. So I thought, I'll try. I knew that I could have said no. But in all honesty, I was a little bit like encouraged that they wanted me to be in that role. So I was like, well, maybe this is, but it wasn't. But so if you've already committed to something, first of all, you got to take responsibility for your commitment, and say, like, I got myself into this, so I'm responsible for it. I made this bed. I got to do it. Secondly, affirm your willingness to that person or to that group that you are willing to follow through, right? We have to be people of our word. So first of all, we recognize, oh boy, I did this. So to myself, I got to like say, I'm in, I did this thing. Secondly, we're going to communicate, I'm willing to follow through. But thirdly, explain why honoring that commitment might not be in their best interest. So you want to do what's best for them. This isn't about you. Your commitment means you already committed. You're about them. So you're going to say, here's a reason why I think this might be better to have somebody else. So Marilyn's in her situation. She says, I'm willing to stay with this another year or what. I don't know if there's a term on it or whether you're emeritus sometimes just means till you die. Yeah. But you can say, like she said, I think you would do better to have somebody from the community there. Somebody, and particularly somebody for whom this is a new challenge. I don't want to be somebody who's phoning it in. I want to, you're not getting a live, committed, vested person. So I'm thinking that we might be able to do better. And then the fourth is what I said of the other one. Help them solve their problem. So if it takes you a number of hours to help them solve their problem, that is nothing like it would take you if you stick with that commitment. You got yourself into the thing, be willing to help them in the best you can to solve it. Again, those are just ideas of how to prune, some activities to get out of it. To do that, you have to first believe you want to prune something.
You just gave me a plan and a way to handle it because it's meant so much to me. I certainly don't want to burn any bridges, but you've given me a way that actually it makes it better for them.
Yeah.
And that's what I would love. So thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And it isn't, and we mean it. We are. You're thinking what's best for them, and that's good. Now, they still, right, particularly when you're dealing with a nonprofit, they need bodies, and so then they need faithful bodies. That's the thing. When you serve in the nonprofit world, you show up and you be faithful and you do your job, you're a leader in no time. They
like me because I'm an effective fundraiser.
Yeah, right. And
nonprofits need money more than anybody in the whole world. And I believe in what the Y is doing, so it's easy for me to do the ask. But now I live in a different county with different issues and other things that are going on, and I'm not as passionate about raising money for a community that's developing outside of my knowledge anymore.
Yeah. And so that what you're saying is that has a good mission, but it's not in alignment with your mission anymore.
Right.
And that's
exactly. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm going to have that call.
Awesome. Because of time, did anybody have anything they just had to say? Because I don't want to stop you, but I would have to close it up. I want to encourage you to make a list of some pruning candidates in your life. This isn't for me. This isn't an assessment thing. I don't think I do that in the assessment, but you can start to think about, are there any things that I need to prune off? Consider them, pray about them, make a plan for them. Now, again, I don't care. So let's say you say, well, maybe this, maybe this, maybe this. And that's as far as you can get. That's the value of having the notebook, right? You have a little sheet that says pruners, maybe pruning. And right now you're just making a little list. You come back to it a little bit later on. You come back and say, oh man, if I wish I had done this back then, it would have been a lot easier. Or, I'm glad I didn't prune it. This thing's now coming alive. It doesn't matter. It's just bringing a category to your mind that you may not have been thinking. Consider them, pray with them, right? That's part of that reflective thing. Lord, what is your thought on this? And then if it is one, plan to do it well. Don't wimp out. Don't passively do it. Don't hope it goes away. I mean, I've got one on a district level in our denomination that I just wimped. I serve on a leadership thing I don't like doing anymore. I don't think it's valuable. Because they need an urban guy, and they like that I'm a critical kind of like thinker thing. And I look and say, this is a waste. And so I keep getting like re-put on there instead of just saying, I will serve this term and then I'm done. I will right now, I think I'm going to say, I don't think it's in your best interest for me to finish this term, but I don't know if that's going to work out, because that's a whole nother thing. But I'm in one of those right now. And then the last thing is, if you can think, move from that list to what would you like to prune a few things over the next quarter or two. There's no rush. You do it however you want, but you want to develop a lifestyle that you're considering it. And sometimes, we think in terms of weeks or maybe a month, but if you look and say like, so where I'm going, this thing needs to not be there in 2020. Well, it will be there unless you do something this quarter about it, so it can be like that. And again, if there's ways I can be of help. And with that, so I have some things like that I'm starting to consider with my wife too. It's kind of like, okay, here's what I'm thinking, because that little poll outside of you that says it's a little objectivity poll, we'll try to like weasel, we'll try to like say it's okay to keep doing it. They're like, you were pretty clear about that. Yeah, but it's just amazing how we talk ourselves into not changing. And so sharing that with somebody outside, the more creative we are in it, is the more that thing is lodged in us. And it will be that much better if we can get it out. Honestly, when we are weaseling to not do what we know we need to do, that means that thing has a hold on us. And when we can get free from it, it actually frees us up more than we realized. Any last thought before I close us in prayer? Whew. Whew. I see Paulia's mind running. She says, I just need more practical part of it. I hear you, but I need to know how to do the thing. Am I hearing you? Am I seeing you right in that, Paulia, or no?
I'm not sure what you just said. I need more practical. No, actually what I was thinking at the time was that one of the hardest things is disappointing people. That's one of the hardest things. Yeah. When it comes, and maybe it's my battery's about to die, but maybe it's the women in the group that may feel that more than you men, but I know you just don't want to disappoint people.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I'm thinking.
Yeah. I think it's a big one for me. I think, and not as much as it would be for your personality type has that in it too more.
Yeah.
But I still hate it. That's the worst part of pastoring. I mean, it is the hardest part because you're always disappointing people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the hardest part for sure. But
yeah.
Because we also want to be faithful. We think that being faithful to people means being faithful to God. And sometimes that's true, but it's not always true.
That is a really good point. Yeah.
Good. Well, Father, thank you that you have fruit for us, fruit that will last.
Mm.
You've created us to be fruitful. It's your life in us that makes us fruitful. As we align our lives with you, you are the God of abundance. And so I pray that you will help us to lay hold of what we're to be doing, and to remove the life suckers off the edges, that we can be freer, that we can be more focused and more present and attentive and prayerful, that we can pack more punch because we are more focused. So I pray your grace over all of us. If there's things you want us to prune in our lives, Give us the courage and the maturity to do it, and to do it in ways that are of benefit to others. So help us be diligent with that, to consider others above ourselves in the process. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. One real quick thing: if we don't prune, Jesus will, because he says the things that bear fruit, he's going to prune. He'll prune, and I've seen that happen. If we don't do it, he will do it.
So maybe I don't need to.
Well, no, it's not. If we don't do it and Jesus does it, it's not going to. It's going to be a lot of harm.
Yeah, there's pruning that happens.
Not going to be a pretty process if he gives
Right,
up.
that's right. It's not going to be a pretty process.
Well, the reality too, when we're pruning, we're doing it in response to him. It's in obedience, so we're coming in saying, Lord, I'm doing this for you. There's a satisfaction and a delight that we can have in that process.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night,
Tom.
everybody.
We'll see
Good
you.
to see everybody.
Good fun.
Same here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.